Recording. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Thrive and Survive Research Hub. Happy New Year to everybody. T, how are you feeling on this fine day?
Morning to everyone listening. Sorry, there's hottie dogs in my background, as you can hear. But happy New Year to everyone, and happy New Year to you too, Alex.
Thanks, my brother.
I'm great. I'm really great. Excited for the new year, and yeah, excited to obviously share some wisdom and exchange knowledge once again.
Awesome. Likewise. All right. Do you want to kick us off with the first question?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So, obviously, in the last podcast, we spoke about quite a number of things, but the one thing that stood out to me was the conversation that we had about uh incompetence. Sorry, we need to start that again.
Conscious. So, yeah, let's
Yeah,
call it the four different levels of mastery, because that's what it's.
100%. So our video editor, you'll edit that out. But
Uh,
anyways,
we'll keep it in.
um,
I'm joking.
but yeah, I just wanted us to speak about the four layers of mastery, and I'd love for you to obviously unpack the different layers
Yeah.
as per the way that you spoke about it last time, but
Awesome.
obviously with a bit more detail and context with relation to your own personal life. So, with that being said, would you like to kick us off, eh?
Pleasure. Yeah, sure. Okay. So, the four different levels of mastery. The first level is unconscious incompetence. The second level is conscious incompetence. The third level is conscious competence. And then the last level is unconscious competence. And the gist of this is most of what we do is subconscious. The brain likes to put us on autopilot to save energy. You'll notice if you're driving to a place that you've been to a couple of times, you're not even paying attention. You just go there. Um, and you're just thinking about everything else that you want to process in your life. And this is also, it relates to the subject of habits in the sense
Yeah,
of most of what we do is habitual, based off of that premise of saving energy and operating unconsciously. Um, when you're trying to do a new behavioral pattern or learn a new skill, you have to go through these layers of mastery. So in the beginning, you don't know what you don't know. Um, Hence the unconscious incompetence. You don't know how bad you are. As you evolve and you learn and you grow, you become more aware of how bad you are because you know what you're not doing. And then
100%.
the third level, which is conscious competence, is you get better at something, but it requires a lot of focus, attention, and energy to be operating at that level. And then the last level of mastery is where you're doing things to a high level, but you don't even have to think about it because you've done it so many times. So it's that rule of, the 10,000 hours from that book Outliers, where they break down.
Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah, Malcolm Gladwell, right. Where he breaks down high performers in the top 1% of their field. And a common theme that goes across each one is that they've been practicing for over 10,000 hours. And within that volume of hours, they've obviously gone through these four different layers of mastery. I think one thing that's interesting is Naval Ravikant said something that I liked a lot, where he said, it's not 10,000 hours, it's 10,000 iterations. So it means you've done the thing for 10,000 iterations, 10,000 times. It's not you've done it for 10,000 hours. It's you practiced
Mm,
the thing 10,000
mm.
times, which I think is a very interesting point. But yeah, so I shared a quote with you before the pod that I actually want to tie into this because I think it speaks to this four different layers of mastery. And it's by the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle, where he says, excellence is an art won by training and habituation. We do not act rightly because we have virtue or excellence, but we rather have these because we have acted rightly. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. And I think this speaks well to this premise of the four different levels of mastery.
Mm,
There's one
mm.
other thing that I want to add here, which is something that I've thought about a lot lately, is what you have to do when you're chasing a higher level and what you have to do when you're maintaining a level you've already reached, very different. It requires
100%.
different levels of energy and focus. And this speaks to the four levels very well. Because when you've got a goal, say you want to get into better shape, to go from where you are now to that better version of you, you don't know how hard it is because you've never been there before. So you are unconscious. You're unconsciously incompetent. As you are working on the progress and you're seeing, okay, I've done this, not making progress. I've done this, not making progress. I've done this, okay, this works. Now you're going and being conscious of your incompetence. As you start getting closer to that place of the goal, even when you reach the goal, now you're there for the first time. That's conscious competence. You're succeeding, but it requires all of your attention and your effort and your energy
Mm,
to
mm,
get to that success. And then once you've held it for long enough that it's now second nature, now you've reached unconscious
mm.
competence.
Wow. And I like how you finished that answer because I'm gonna relay and re-emphasize on, one topic I'm very passionate about and I always speak about, which is the law of hypnotic rhythm by Napoleon Hill,
Yeah,
which basically explains the same concept
yeah,
in the sense that you need to do something for a sustained period of time to embed it into your habitual system. And doing it in short sprints and taking breaks doesn't work.
yeah,
The reality is that you need to do it over a period of time because that's the only way it becomes ingrained in your habitual system. And through that, allowing you to work whatever you're doing in autopilot and therefore become a master. And when you look at people in different fields, be it professional, be it sports, the best guys make it look so easy. You
100%.
know, not because they were laying up for that moment, but because they were doing what they were doing now for such a long time in the background without even noticing
Mm-hmm.
that it now looks like a flex, And, the most interesting thing about people who are really good, who continuously um, break records is that, yes, they do understand that they're working at autopilot, but they continue to stretch themselves to work beyond that autopilot stage, right? Because like what you said, um, there's a difference in the amount of energy required in order to maintain a certain level and in order to get to a new level.
Yeah,
And I think that's the difference between those who win once and twice and those who continuously win forever. They understand the law of hypnotic rhythm and they understand that for every new level, there's a new devil. And you got to continuously fight this climb and fight this devil
yeah,
to be at your peak. And your peak changes, right? Um,
100%.
your peak today and your peak tomorrow are two totally different spaces. Sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low. But the reality is that it's always directly correlated to how you abide with the law of hypnotic rhythm.
I love it. Yeah. And you know what's interesting? There's so many things that like I'm thinking about that. But one, you know, these principles are universal truths that get discovered by many different sources at different times.
Yeah,
And like I say, the principle is not created by any one individual. It's something that was always there, and we realize it. That's the discovery of wisdom, right?
yeah,
Um, it's evolution in a
yeah,
nutshell. It's constant,
100%.
continuous evolution. And
Mm,
the second thing is like one of the things that's so cool about human beings is that our ceiling of potential is limitless. It really is when you think about it. And as a person, one of the cool things about having ambitious goals, you should really have goals that are so ambitious that you have no idea how you're going to get there. Because
yeah,
what's the point of setting a goal where you know how to get there? You've already done
yeah,
that, you know? By setting these ambitious goals that are almost outrageous, you
yeah,
you break through your past limitations and you can reach new layers. So, for example, what you were saying there about the athletes or the high performers, that it's the difference between winning 1 or 2 times and winning regularly every time. The latter group are always setting these outrageous goals that are unrealistic because they
Yeah.
know failure is not in not reaching that goal. It's in
Yeah.
not trying that goal in the first place.
100%.
That's where failure is. Because
100%.
if you think about it, it's way better to get to 80% of an outrageously ambitious goal than 100% of a mediocre goal. That's the difference.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah,
Well
it's a
said.
course of it's a case for ambitious, unrealistic expectations.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
And with that being said, now that we're speaking about goal setting and mastery, I have
Yes.
another question for you.
Mm-hmm.
And this question is might be a bit controversial, but I just want to get your take or your opinion on two matters. First one being a subject matter expert versus being a
General.
polymath or a
Yeah.
jack of all trades.
Yep.
In your opinion, what is better and what do you think adds more value to society?
That's a great question. That's a great question. You know what?
Considering
Yeah.
and before you answer, just consider the fact that we're living in a dynamic time that is ever changing compared to
Oh,
before.
sure.
And your subject mastery today, tomorrow could be irrelevant
Yeah.
just because of the rate of change that we're currently living in. So I
Yeah.
just love for you to answer the question based
Based
on
on that context.
yeah.
I'll tell you what I think. So for me, I think as a human being, you should never accept labels or boxes. And one of the things about subject matter experts is that I feel like they make a field a part of their identity. So, it's a common thing that we see today where people are like, I'm an accountant, I'm a lawyer, I'm an engineer, I'm a this, I'm a that. Or I'm creative. No, I'm not creative. I'm organized. I'm this and that. These labels that, like I was saying just now, our potential is limitless. So you should never restrict yourself to one field because you think that's what you're good at. And also, if
Mm,
we talk about, there's so many things that go into this expert thing. It's like comfort zone.
mm,
Knowing just because you know something and you feel comfortable there because you know more than the average person, does that mean you should spend the rest of your life doing that? I don't think so. I think
mm.
your evolution as a person suffers for that.
Yeah,
And the beauty of a long life is that it has many different seasons and you can constantly reinvent yourself.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I think also with the nature of change, just from a risk perspective, to
yeah,
bank on your future based purely off of knowing a lot about one thing is probably not the smartest move. I think it's far more useful to focus on your character development as a person, your skills, and your relationships, because
100%.
those things will always be valuable, regardless of how the seasons change and the world evolves. Um, and one of my favorite things is this thing by not Tim Ferriss, Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn, where they say knowledge is overrated. If you learn knowledge for the sake of knowing stuff, you will be a poor man. If you learn knowledge for the sake of taking action, you'll be a wealthy man. The book that you read that you don't apply is just as bad as the book that you never read in the first place.
100%.
So, there's those people that are habitual students that will study for the rest of their lives and just get a million degrees because they're actually too afraid to play in the real world anyways,
Yeah,
because they have
yeah,
a comfort zone. So
yeah.
that's my take on it. What about you? What do you think?
I mean, before I answer, I'd just like to add on, a really nice quote that I like by Charlie Jones that states, who you are today and who you'll be in 5 to 10 years depends on two things:
Yeah,
the books you read and whether you apply them,
yeah.
and who you meet.
Oh, 100%. That's a great,
You know,
that's great.
because those two things combined, of course, considering the fact that your character develops and you also remain ambitious and abide by all these laws, like the law of hypnotic rhythm, um, work hard and do all the basics, fundamentals of becoming successful.
Yeah.
Those two are the actual secret ingredients. Although, we don't speak about them much in life, but the reality is that, almost 80% of success depends on those two things. And that's where you see people without education or people who go to the best schools sometimes becoming the most successful, you know, because they quickly read, they applied, and then they met the right people. You know, the accumulation of knowledge and certificates, it's just the standard way of us getting into the system. It was designed as capitalism, right?
Yeah.
It just verifies and shows everyone that, hey, dude, I've got these certificates, meaning that I had the discipline to sit down for 5 years, attend class, pass my modules, and do everything required
Yeah.
to get this. And it's just a sign of discipline.
Yeah, 100%. And you
Not
know what?
competence,
Like,
but discipline.
curiosity is also something that a lot of people don't think about enough.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. You've got kids and I plan on having kids one day. The question of their education and the best way to approach it is an interesting one
Mm.
because education for the sake of learning and development versus education for the sake of fitting into a system, not the same thing.
Yeah.
And all educational institutions are vulnerable to influence and vulnerable to the tide in which
Yeah.
direction it's going into.
Yeah. Yeah.
Think of a subject like history. History, you know, history is such an interesting subject that is also so murky because
Yeah.
who gets to decide what actually happened? The oaks that are writing stuff down,
Yeah.
not the
Yeah.
people that were there because they're not there to tell you
100%.
the story. So, you know, I think your education, when you educate your children as a parent, you have to take responsibility for educating them all the time. So
Yeah.
you cannot outsource it to a teacher because you don't know what that teacher's ideology is, what their intention is, who they are as a person, what have they
Yeah.
accomplished,
Yeah.
who are they. So not to go too deep into that, but I just mean like a lot of people assume that their learning ends when they graduate from university.
Mm.
You want to tell me
Mm-hmm.
you've learned everything you needed to learn at 21, 22?
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, you
Impossible.
haven't started. You haven't
And
started.
I like what you mentioned about education and lifelong learning, right? And I
Yes,
think it's very important to separate the difference between systematic education, education that feeds the system,
yes,
that continuously needs to be renewed and updated as things change, and then
right.
there's timeless education,
That's it.
which we quote as wisdom,
Right.
And I think if you make sure that over and above, the education that you have, you prioritize gaining wisdom,
Yeah,
irregardless of how quickly the world changes, those same principles
always a plan.
allow you to remain relevant within the system that is ever changing. And
Yeah,
I think people get it the other way around. People are continuously going into furthering their knowledge and skills with regards to education that is relevant to the current system,
yeah,
not considering the fact that this is not timeless and this needs to be done in combination with wisdom and timeless education, such as studying philosophy, developing your character and your traits, having strong purpose of life, developing and being non-compromising on your values and how you treat people and how you relate to people. Because I think that's what takes you further. That's what the guys at the top have,
yeah,
leaders, company owners. They have that as an edge. They don't have the core education that feeds the system
that's
95% of the
100%.
time. You do
Yeah,
get guys who get to the top with both, but realistically speaking, if you look at most company owners, they're not in the detail. They were at a time, but what they have is superior leadership skills and wisdom.
yeah,
Take
yeah.
advantage of the people that are within the organization and drive them in such a way that they reap the benefits of their skills.
I think a great way to add to this is the concept of fundamental and supplementary, right? The study of wisdom should be the fundamental knowledge base, your fundamental source of education, and
Yeah.
then the technical topics should be your secondary, because
Yeah.
technical things are always evolving, always changing. But the fundamental wisdom and the principles that make that up, they never change.
Yeah.
So it's also like, when people look at nutrition, they think, okay, protein shake, this supplement, that supplement, and then at the end, a little bit of nutrition, when it needs to be the other way around, where
Yeah.
20% is nutrition, 10% is the supplement. That's the
100%.
education as well, with what you were saying. So
100%.
no, I
100%.
agree.
100%.
I think it's a great topic.
And I, and I love that, right? Just to close off this topic, to show that, you know, education is great and it's a privilege to get to go to some of the best schools and things like that. But the curriculum itself is flawed, right? Because based on what we've discussed,
Yeah,
the reality is that if you put logic into this, there should be a class for philosophy or for wisdom
dude,
or for ethics.
we must start a school of wisdom. Well, we are doing
You
that now with this, but
you know what I'm saying? There
yeah,
should be a class because that is integral and parallel to how far you can go with the skills you gain that are relevant to the
yes,
current system.
yes,
And it's not. And unfortunately, the world has left it up to the individual to gain that along your journey of success. Because even if you do get success without the wisdom and the knowledge,
yeah,
your level of happiness is not the same as the guy who has wisdom,
yeah, yeah,
right?
100%. 100%. And that would change the world if we had that. I mean, I'm reading this book about the city of Alexandria in Egypt and how it was founded and the evolution of this city. And the reason I have such an interest in it is because, my dad named me after Alexander the Great.
Yeah,
So I have this like fascination with my namesake and the history
yeah,
behind him. And
yeah.
he founded that city um, with this vision in mind of creating a global metropolis of different cultures. It was basically the first multicultural city of that kind in human history. And
Mm,
the story of its evolution is fascinating. But the reason I bring it up now is just because when Alexander was a boy, his father brought Aristotle to be his teacher and his mentor. And him, along with a number of other youths in Macedonia at that time, were taught philosophy and wisdom from this great teacher.
mm,
And you notice that from that crop of students, many of them went on to achieve very great things because of the principles and the wisdom that was taught to them from a young age.
mm,
And I
mm.
think for us as a society, as a species, in our education system, we need to be looking at that more carefully in
Yeah,
terms of our youth and giving them guidance that is timeless,
yeah,
and not just teaching them that you should study for a test and then forget that thing afterwards. It doesn't matter. You're just learning memorization.
yeah,
That's the educational system in a nutshell. It's just
yeah,
understand the test, memorize the answers, project it onto the page, and that's it. Or write down what your teacher wants you to say. That's
yeah,
basically ethics in a nutshell. So yeah,
yeah,
I mean, at the end of the day, your life is driven by the decisions that you make. And the
yeah,
study of wisdom is the study of decision making, cause and effect. How can I
yeah,
make better choices to make
yeah,
my life better and the lives of those
yeah,
around me better?
yeah. And just to close that off, completely, I think it's hard to develop a framework that allows for you to make wise decisions, right? Um, requires a lot of reading, requires the right mentors. It doesn't come naturally.
No.
No one is like supernaturally gifted at having wisdom. That's why they say wisdom comes with age.
Well, that's the
But
quote
wisdom,
that I just said now. It's like training and habituation. We are not
yeah,
excellent by nature. It's a choice,
100%,
you know.
100%. And that's why it'll always be the 80-20 or the 90-10, and the point of these conversations and the reasons why we continually engage and want to be the best, it's because we understand that, in order to be really fulfilled and happy in life, you want to fall into
Yeah.
the 20 or the 10. Not only financially, financially one thing is great, but there's people who don't achieve financial success who still fall in the 10%,
Yeah. 100%.
who are
Yeah.
successful in many other different ways. So yeah, I think that's a good way to close off that topic and move on to the next. Should you have any questions for me?
Yeah. One thing I want to add there at the end is like, if you think about success, success is just living the life that you want to live by your
Yeah.
definition, your design. It's not about money or fame or any of those things. It's just, did you get the result that you wanted? You know? And I saw a really cool comment on one YouTube video that I thought was hilarious. And this guy was like, "Oh, why don't women like smart guys?" And the one guy underneath that said, "It's because women respect real life intelligence, like oaks that can actually achieve success in the world, not some guy who can recite World War II battles with an
Yeah.
encyclopedia in his brain, but still lives in his mom's basement. Like
Yeah. Of
that's
course.
not intelligence." And I thought that's such a good thing to say because really
Yeah.
intelligence is just, are you getting what you want?
Yeah.
And it makes me think of this Naval quote, which I love, where he says, "If you're so smart, why aren't you happy?"
Mm.
And I thought, yeah, that's a great thing for the people who worship material success and intellect but are miserable because they don't have
Mm.
wisdom. It's like,
Mm.
if you're so smart, why aren't you happy?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
And
it.
and back to what you were saying, you mentioned like, females are attracted to, the best. If you look and there's like polls or there's signs that they look for, right? When they look for the best. If you
Yeah,
go
of
back in
course.
time, back in the times it was
Biological.
like the biggest lion would get the biggest male lion would get the most, wives, or the
Hmm,
baboon or the gorilla with the biggest chest would be the most attractive, right?
exactly.
Because in that environment, strength and size signifies safety, stability, the ability to hunt and stuff like that. And in our society, obviously, we live in a different jungle. Like you said, real world intelligence, the ability to make a living, the ability to remain relevant, the ability to influence people are
Yeah,
those measures of what attract people to you.
yeah, of course.
And you need to develop those should you want to obviously
Be
elevate
attractive.
your life
Yeah,
and be attractive, right? Because you need people, and this goes beyond women, right? Even just business partners,
of course.
business itself. You need to have these indicators that are on you that show, okay, cool. He's ethical, he's reliable,
Yeah,
he knows what he's talking about, and he's gonna walk the talk. You
100%.
know, and
Yeah,
that's was
yeah, and like we say, don't hate the game, play it. It's
yeah,
the game. And can you
yeah,
blame women for wanting to have a high value partner? No. You know, I go back to this thing of like, don't hate others for wanting the exact same thing that you want.
yeah,
They're doing the
yeah,
exact same thing. Like you
yeah,
want an attractive partner, they want an
yeah,
attractive partner.
hundred
Instead of
percent,
crying about it, work on yourself and become more
yeah,
attractive.
yeah,
Simple.
100%,
Not easy, but it's simple.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's funny when you speak of attractiveness, but this is a topic for another day.
sure.
The definition of attractiveness as well
Subject.
changes, right?
It's subjective. Yeah. Yeah.
Like all the time. Like some people just become more attractive because they're just smart, or they just become more attractive because they're doing something that nobody else is doing.
Yeah.
you
Or
know
the
so
energy is
attraction
really
changes as you get
positive.
older.
Yeah.
Yeah, or the vibrational state that they're in you know
100%.
um but yeah, like I said, that's a topic for another day. I think we should just bookmark that as well.
100%. Okay, cool. I've got another question for you, which I think
Cool.
I think is very relevant right now. So, in our last episode, we spoke about maintaining momentum throughout the festive season and things
Yeah.
that you can do to do that well. What if you didn't do that? What if your holiday was a bit of a write-off and you're coming into the new year with a sense of foreboding and a little bit of anxiety because the holiday is now ending and you have to go back to work? How
Mm.
do you jumpstart yourself in this new year? What's the reboot button look like for you? What would you do?
Yeah. Yeah. So luckily I had a recharging holiday.
Yeah.
Like
Same.
in the last podcast we spoke about, you know, be careful to do things that you enjoy but drain you,
Hmm.
because those need to be moderated. And I focused on doing things that I enjoy but recharge me.
Okay.
But to get back to the point, the
Yeah.
question is, what would I need to do should I have not followed that rhythm?
Right.
And I think this is where your mentality comes in, and wisdom, because the reality now is that you're climbing a steep mountain, and you got to consciously fight this battle and understand that you're in this position because of the choices that you made.
Yeah.
So you got to acknowledge the fact that you had the right offer to begin with, and work your way around dealing with the consequences.
Yeah, 100%.
Because the reality is that someone else has momentum. Don't look at them and be like, oh, how did they get there? Focus on yourself, you know, focus on dealing with the consequences, acknowledging it, and then fighting it daily until you get back into that state of momentum that you were previous to the holiday. So,
Mm,
to summarize that answer, I just think it's an honest conversation with yourself.
mm,
Why am I feeling this way? What did I do to feel this way? Sometimes you can't, trace or fault find why you're feeling that way. But the reality is that you need to deal with it. You need to acknowledge how you're feeling. And then you need to climb the mountain.
100%.
There's no other way around it. And what's your take on it? Yeah, what would you do if you were in a position where, you didn't have a recharging holiday, but one that rather drained your energy because
Yeah.
of overindulging?
Yeah. Look, I mean, what you said there about honesty is spot on. You know, I, I, I honestly, it's ironic to say I honestly believe. I believe that honesty, especially self-honesty, is the fundamental platform upon which all good things can be built, being
Yeah,
honest with yourself.
yeah,
But what I would say is it's just understanding the laws of momentum and recognizing that you cannot just go back to the high level frequency that you were at before
mm,
you shut everything down. It's like
mm,
imagine a big mining operation. When I
mm,
was in my articles, I was on mines. And during the festive season, the mines don't close. Why? Because the nature of the operation is so big that you cannot simply shut it down for 2 weeks and then just turn it back on again.
mm.
Those operations are continuously running, and
Yeah,
the intensity at which they run varies, but they never stop
yeah,
until the show is over. And I
yeah.
think our lives are kind of the same. It's naive to assume that you can just shut down all operations and then at the press of a button go and operate again at full speed. So
Mm,
when I talk about the law of momentum, what I'm saying is you need to start small. If you're coming back from the holiday,
yeah,
the worst thing you can do is not get started. It's to reach the end of Jan and still be in the same place that you are right now. So what I would do is I would say, look at the end of Jan, ask yourself, when I reach this date and I'm in a great place, what does that look like? And what did I do? Reverse engineer it. And then try and start as small as possible to get back into that thing. So a good example of this is a lot of people don't gym during the holidays, and now they face the challenge of getting back into a regular exercise routine. Are you going
yeah,
to go and do the hardest workout the first time you go? No, don't do that, because then you're not going to go. Or if you do go, you're going to hate it so much that you don't go back. So focus on building the habit again of exercising, where you literally just say, okay, today my exercise is I walk for fucking 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Anyone can do that. And then give yourself credit for that and be like, yes,
mm,
I made a good choice
mm,
today.
mm,
And then you say, next
mm,
one, I'm going to go a little bit further and a little bit further and use the law of
mm,
progressive overload.
mm.
And like you said, just be honest with yourself and give yourself some compassion. Don't beat yourself up and be like, oh, you useless Blix from this and that, blah, blah, blah. Accept it. It is what it is.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
the truth is, you are still that same person that you were at the end of last year when you were hitting 3-pointers everywhere, being a superstar. You're still that
Yeah.
same person. And the best part is you are wiser than that person was because
Yeah.
you've been through more. So
Yeah.
yeah, but have belief that you can get back to where you were, take your time and build that momentum up again. And
Mm.
use this as a learning experience so that the next festive season that you go into, you can say to yourself, you know what? I know what happened last year. I completely screwed the pooch. I dropped the ball, and I don't want to do that again. So I'm
Yeah.
not going to do that because this was
Yeah.
literally, this was me. 2022 December, I was like, you know what? I've worked hard. I'm in Cape Town. I'm just going to take off and do whatever I want.
Yeah.
I mistreated my body. Jan, I got sick as hell and then really did not start the year off on a great note. This time around, I really like stayed on the track with everything that I was doing. And it was the best December I've ever had in my life for that. And now I go into January and I'm excited because I'm like, awesome. I'm picking up
So the same.
right where I was, if not a little bit better than last year. So this year is going to be epic. And that's wisdom. That's the nature of like evolving as a person, accepting, okay,
Yeah.
that other festive season, I was unconsciously incompetent. I didn't know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this festive season, I was consciously competent. So
Yeah.
that's the nature of evolution,
And just to top that off, for moving on to the next topic, I think the underlying fact there is the reality of you not placing as much importance on the new year. I
Yes.
think this whole New Year thing is bogus, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
Your New Year, okay, this is me now. I'm not gonna impose my beliefs on everyone. But for me, my New Year is my birthday.
Hey,
That's
that's me
that's my
too.
first
Oh,
that's
that's me
right.
too. Great point.
Not this like my calendar is when I was born. That's how
There
my
we
years
go.
work, right?
There we
And
go.
and that's where my pressure points are, you
Yeah,
know, and that's where I assist myself actually, not December,
love it.
rest when everyone's resting. That's not my flow. You know what I'm saying? We're going back to the 80-20 thing now again, right?
Yes,
And I'm gonna use a businessman as a good example, right?
sure.
You know, one of my mentors is the chairman. 28th December, man was working because
That's it.
he'll rest on his birthday for sure, you know. But not to say that he was working because he didn't want to be part of the 80%, but the significance of the new year to him is irrelevant because things still need to get done.
Thanks.
For where he is in his life at
Yeah,
this point in time, he cannot afford to rest like everyone else is resting.
yeah,
And yeah, I think we should just understand the fact that your new year is determined by you. You know, it's not the birthday for everyone, but if you're gonna put too much pressure on yourself because it's the 1st of January according to the traditional calendar, then you're bound to carry a lot more anxiety and all those other things that come with it, because of
100%.
the starting calendar.
No, I couldn't agree more. I love that. It's so I got so excited there because what you said about your New Year as your birthday was exactly the same as for me. And
Yeah,
I didn't know that you would like that. So this year on my birthday, I have this thing where on my birthday, I always have to do something productive for myself because I treat it as my gift from me to me. So on this birthday, I had such a hard workout. Like, yes, dude. Afterwards, I was sitting on the chair, just broken. And
yeah,
my dad was like, "What are you doing? It's your birthday." And I'm like, "Yeah, I just
yeah,
have to give myself a present so that I can respect the rest of the day."
yeah. Of course, of course.
Um, but yeah, a great concept. I also think it's a
Yeah,
good way to approach big big events in and changes in your life. And the reason why I say that is like when something happens that changes your life, be it moving to a new city, uh, going through a breakup, having a new relationship, or whatever, it's useful to ask yourself, okay, how do I want this my life to go from this moment? And I'll use a very relevant example from my personal experience. I got out of a very long-term relationship for me. It was 4 years. And literally, like, the first thing I did after me and my ex-girlfriend broke up was work out. I went to the gym. And the voice in my head, what I said to myself was, how do you want the rest of your life to go after this? What you do now is very important. Because what 80% of people do when they go through a situation like that is they go through hurt, they go through pain, and then they self-destruct. They go to the bar and they get drunk, or they go on a binge for like 3 weeks where they just don't gym, they just don't take care of themselves, whatever. It's the 10% that goes through these moments of disturbance and change and actually see it as opportunities to redefine themselves. And so, like, you go to a new city, are you going to sit in your flat for 2 weeks because you're scared of the new environment? Or is the first thing that you're going to do is embrace the discomfort and go out and do something? And you can
Yeah.
speak to this because you've lived overseas.
Yeah. Yeah.
I went to Stellenbosch when I was 18. I went to studies, introverted kid. First week, I just stayed in my flat because I was so scared of the new environment, and
Yeah.
eventually I had to go out. But imagine what would have how different it would have been if I set the tone by literally as soon as I move in, go to my neighbor, knock on the door, and say, "Hey, I'm Alex. What's up?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, like every moment is a new opportunity to redefine yourself and ask yourself, how do I want the rest of my life to go from this moment on?
Yeah. 100%. And I like how you said that. I think a lot of people want to define themselves based on the relationships that they have with people,
Mm-hmm.
girlfriend, boyfriend, mom, dad.
Yeah.
The reality is that you're born alone, you
Done.
die alone,
Yeah.
you know? And it's in that realization that you realize that to develop your own identity is extremely paramount to the quality relationships that you'll have with other people
Yeah.
around you
Yeah.
and the value that you'll add to the environment around you. And last but not least, that will also determine how much you can extract from the environments that you go into. So I'll use myself as a good example. I've lived in multiple countries across multiple different continents, Africa, Asia, and Europe. And what really helped me, you know, enjoy the journey and reap the maximum reaps from those journeys was the fact that I was strong in my own self identity and I continued to develop myself in those areas that I went.
Mm.
Yes, different environments, but didn't change accordingly. And because I was always myself, people got along with me, people found me attractive, and I got along with them because
Yeah.
I was always myself.
100%.
And I think that's something that's extremely important to always be conscious of as you go through life because your happiness, like you said before, is entirely dependent upon yourself.
Yes.
But you cannot control that variable if you're not aware of your own self identity and don't have things in place to develop that as you grow older or as you move into new environments.
Yeah. And I think that's the nature of independence of character. Like, to add to what you said there, which I think is brilliant, is, and I say this humbly, not as a point of arrogance, but at the end of the day, the person whose respect you should be most concerned with is your own. You need to earn your own respect. You need to like yourself. And if that means walking away from everybody that you need to be willing to pay that price. I'm not saying you should. I'm not saying that's what must happen. But I'm saying if the whole world is screaming at you to do something that you don't feel is in alignment with your values, you need to be willing to walk away. And a very, like, okay, bit of a grotesque example, but relevant. World War II, Nazi Germany. The people that became Nazis, that worked in concentration camps, were people like you and me. They were not monsters. It's just their sense of identity of what was acceptable to them was not strong enough for them to die for
Mm.
own values.
Yeah.
One of the things that Viktor Frankl says in The Man's Search for Meaning, great book about, for those who don't know, psychologist who was in Auschwitz during World War II, concentration camp. He wrote the book based off of his observations of the people around him and human nature in a nutshell. And one of the things that he said that I'll never forget is, speaking from the perspective of prisoners, he said, the best of us didn't make it. The best of us didn't make it because to survive required you to do things that a good man should not do. For example, to have enough food to live, you must steal the bread of the man next to you, which is death. You kill that guy. To survive the cold, you have to steal his blanket. To live another day and not get sent to a chamber, you had to bribe the guard to take your number off of the list and put someone else's number on there. So to not be a Nazi in Nazi Germany, you had to have a strong sense of identity of what is right and what is wrong. To not become a monster in a concentration camp, you had to be willing to die.
Mm.
So that's why I say, if the whole world is telling you to do something that you don't think is right, success is having a strong sense of character and being willing to say, I would rather die, or I'd rather walk alone, or I'd rather be by myself. And most people will never reach there. It's a constant journey to try and become that person, you know.
Mm.
And another thing that add there is what you said about wherever you go in the world, your character should be the same. You are the same person. So
Yeah.
I think it's also a great metaphor for success and human development and happiness and fulfillment. A
Yeah.
lot of people feel that if I get the goal, I'll be happy. If I go to the city, I'll be happy. If I do this, I'll be happy. Unfortunately, wherever you go, you follow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you're not happy right now, that thing's not going to make you happy. That person's not going to make you happy. You must make yourself
100%.
happy, you know?
100%. And
So,
I think just to
yeah,
wrap it up and restate what I said earlier on, born alone, you die alone,
yeah,
you know? And I think once you really think about that deeply and always keep that top of mind and understand that a coffin has a space for one,
yeah,
the decisions you make in life and how you relate to others will reflect that. And the quality of your life alone will be really high. And when people do join your life, even higher, not because they've joined, but because you're yourself and you're just adding value and they just benefiting from that too.
well said.
So yeah, I think that was a
Great.
excellent podcast, lots of
Yeah,
wisdom shared there.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, to all the listeners, thanks for tuning into the first one. We have a nice pipeline of guests coming up this year. And yeah, Alex, I just want to say thank you, for your time and for driving this. And yeah, I look forward to taking this to the next level alongside you.
Thank you very much. All right, folks, we'll see you next time.